Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back, everyone. Today I want to talk about the topic of racism. And I've chosen to talk about this topic because in my various debates, conversations with people over the years, I've realized that the issue of racism is a lot more nuanced than we typically think it is, at least in general, when people, talk about this issue. They usually talk about racism uh, that relates to, of course, uh, negative discrimination against people based on the color of their skin. And while, yes, that is by definition racism, right? That phenomena interacts with various other nuanced phenomena that we find in societies generally the world over, um, and that we need to sort of look at. We need to look at how the issues, interlink with each other, how they intersect, and when we understand, hopefully, inshallah, with Allah's qudra, bi'idhnillah, we will understand the situation, why we are where we are, better in that. And then after that, of course, given that understanding, we will be able to better address the issue of racism, and hopefully we will be able to overcome, you know, uh, racism. Okay, I know that kind of seems ambitious, like one YouTube video obviously isn't gonna, help people overcome racism, but it's an attempt. We all just try to play our small part that we can, play. And so what I want to say is that we live in a post-colonial era where most of the world has been affected by, has been touched by, has been conquered by the British Empire. And of course, that being the case, a lot of our perceptions, the backing behind a lot of our discourses are basically formed against the canvas of colonialism, since we are in a post-colonial era, and the British influence over the world has not exactly been lifted, and certainly has not yet been overcome. So the scars, in other words, wreaked on the world by the British Empire is still being felt throughout the world currently, the world that we live in. This is not something revealing, this is not something amazing, that I'm saying. This is something that many British people, British academics also, even probably the British government can acknowledge, it's just a fact of history, it's a fact of life. Okay, so when we start sort of with that sort of background, at least to sort of contextualize racism in our modern era, not that racism didn't exist before that, we at least have something to start with. Okay, so what was a colonialism essentially? What was the ideology of colonialism? Regretfully, the British took Christianity, which is something sacred, and interpreted the Bible in such a way that they could justify their sense of superiority, over others. Okay, the conquered territories, the people that they've colonized. That justification of superiority intersected with color. Okay, meaning, that the British were white and the colonized territories were generally not white, at least outside of Europe anyway. Okay, and so where uh, the the phenomena, where the ideology of superiority intersected with color, it amounted to racism. Okay, but the big question is, I mean, or let's not call it a big question, but an important question in the issue of racism that we need to ask ourselves is, why was it important for this othering? Why do people generally other people? Why do they say, you know what, we are superior and they are inferior? Okay, what is the significance of that? Why do people do that? Why do we need to do that in some ways, especially in the context of colonization and imperialism and whatever, conquering of people, okay, in the more ancient sense? Um, Essentially, it is so that we can sleep better at night. Because when you other people, when you say, you know what, they are inferior, you know what, they are barbarians, they are being tamed, we are civilizing the barbarians, as the British would have liked to think of themselves when they embarked on their escapades. It helped them basically sleep better at night. Okay? Because what they were doing when they were raping and pillaging and stealing resources, I mean, that hasn't stopped, right? They did it, you know, with the belief that those they are harming are not really human beings. Okay? They are not equal to us, and therefore civilized rules, meaning laws of relative equality, laws that protect people, laws that honor women, and things like that. You know, it's not that the British didn't have things like that, right? But it only applied to them. It only applies, it's like a group of people saying, you know what, our laws only apply to us. Our laws that protect people only protect us. It doesn't apply to the other, because the other is subhuman, less than, inferior. And so what we do to them doesn't matter. Okay? And in so viewing, we can sleep peacefully at night because we have not really wronged anyone, because those people are not really people. They are not equal to us. Okay? So this is sort of has always been the precursor to genocide, the narrative that precedes genocide. We see it happening also a lot, has happened consistently in American media, in American movies, with in relation to the Arabs, right? They always portrayed, long before the advent of so-called Islamic extremism, and Islamic extremists, they have long ago portrayed Arab Muslims in the media as extremists, as criminals, basically, you know? And when that narrative exists, and when the world starts viewing Arabs as sand niggers, you know, when they start viewing Arabs as less than, and then it's Arab blood becomes cheap, right? Arab blood is cheap. It's okay to kill them because, you know what? They are just uncivilized barbarians who do terrible things for no apparent reason. So the othering of people, right, is an important ingredient in racism, when that othering intersects with color. And since the British were white, and the colonized territories were generally, of the world of course, were not white, right? It resulted in the reinforcing of a systemic, I think, racist doctrine. And so because we live in, we are experiencing the aftermath of that in this essentially Eurocentric world we live in, a Eurocentrism that cannot be escaped even if you are in the blackest of black part of Africa, right? you will still find some sort of admiration for white people because they are white. A'udhu billah. That being, of course, the reality. Now, I don't advocate, of course, a reverse of what has happened, because that's then what happens now is that we tend to have the opposite extreme. Okay, it often happens in history that the downtrodden, when they rise up, become the tyrants of tomorrow. Okay, because they cannot let go of their anger and hatred for what has happened to them, and then they perpetrate the same on others. So you do find sort of the opposite, the what minorities or black minorities or discriminated against minorities might for themselves view as positive discrimination against the other, where they tend to want to stick together as a black minority, want to marry each other and want to retain at all costs their black identity. Okay, so what I'm saying is that when you want to retain a black identity as a black identity, right, then you can't be upset when other people identify you as black, because now your blackness intersects with a very unique and specific black culture in your black identity. And so if others identify you as black, okay, then you can't really say, you know what, those people are being racist, because that's how you identify yourself. And so if that is the identity politic you want to play into, فَلْيَتَفَضَّلْ, but don't then go and say, you know what, people are being racist against us, because you have chosen to identify yourself along the lines of the color of your skin, and that's fine, if that's what you want to do. And so this brings me to the other aspect of this racism, discussion, and that is that sometimes we mistake identity for racism. We mistake the need to identify with racism. Okay, when people, cultures, for example, intersect with the color of their skin, and others identify them as such, for example, if you live in a place that is racially segregated, like South Africa, for example, and you in a little neighborhood and it's a black neighborhood, okay, and in this particular neighborhood there's a particular phenomena that happens more in that neighborhood than anywhere else. There's a particular culture, there's a particular value system that is promoted in that neighborhood more than anywhere else. Now, if people in and around the neighborhood generalize and say, you know what, in that black neighborhood, right, XYZ is more prevalent there, okay? And so they relate the color of people's skin to the phenomena that is more prevalent amongst those people. That is not being racist. Okay, let me say that again. That is not being racist. That is just the practical reality in which people have found themselves. Okay, and this is where I would say people confuse the issue a lot. Okay, there's nothing. If people want to identify themselves as a particular race, and that race espouses a particular culture, right, and then someone else calling it out, that person is not being racist. Okay, I'm trying to find a concrete example that's not going to be too offensive. Let's say, for example, when you are in the outside world, in a third world country, for example, a predominantly black country, and we want to discuss the attitude of a essentially European culture, maybe in relation to women being free to negotiate their sexual relationships, something maybe not so so prevalent in many African countries. And then you say, you know what, that is sort of like how white women are. Okay, it's a generalization, right? In terms of the context of that society, right, white people and white culture is viewed in a particular light, you know, and for them, right, because of the vast differences in culture, that definition holds true in a general sense. Now, it is not being racist to call it out and say, you know what, that is white culture, because essentially that's what it is. Because in the context of blackness, where you live in a place where there are only black people, right, and you know, you are referring to a culture that where people are predominantly white, right, and then you say, you know what, that is white European culture, you are not being racist in that regard. You are just calling it out. And why I'm saying that is important to recognize is because in this attempt to be anti racist, to say that, you know what, I'm not a racist, we have now become susceptible to glossing over real matters in societies and not being able to properly study them and understand them, because we are having to be politically correct even when we are not racist. Okay, and this is because obviously the Eurocentric British racism that they exported everywhere, right? White superiority, the white superiority complex, which is real, it does exist, okay? But it is the unfortunate inheritance from a post-colonial world now that we have, and we just need to see it for what it is, but not overreact. And that's what I'm saying. People are overreacting, and then it becomes it ignores the need for human beings to try to belong to a group of people, whether it is people wanting to identify themselves as a black minority and having a black culture. That's fine. That's what I'm saying, right? Yeah, it's fine, but it's not racist to call it out. It's not racist for somebody to say, you know what, that's black culture. Because if a black minority has reinforced that themselves as part of their identity, right, then that's okay. It's like somebody, for example, saying, you know what, in the athletics team of the United States, right, most of the sprinters, 100 meter, 200 meter, 400 meter, 1.5 kilometer runners, right, are black and are gold medalists. Okay, now you don't see black people complaining about that. Why? Because that's something positive, right? You don't see white people saying, you know what, it's so unfair that most of the runners are black. Okay, if black people are athletically more endowed, okay, in some ways, and tend to excel, more than other people who are different colors in athletics, bravo, that's good, ahsant, what's the problem with it, right? And if we point it out, that we should not be considered racist. That's what I'm saying, because that's not being racist. That is just recognition. And so I'm going to get into, that is the backdrop of my discussion. And now I want to get into how this intersects with Islam. Okay, like what does Islam have to offer to this type of discussion? And obviously I can't say definitively. I'm not the spokesperson for Islam, but from what I know and what I've seen. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do next. Okay, so one of the ayat that comes to mind, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم, which is in Surah 49, ayah number 13, Al-Hujarat, which says, Ya ayyuhan nas, O mankind, O people, inna khalaqanakum min dhakarin wa untha. Indeed, we have created you from a male and a female. وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا. And we have made you into nations and tribes, لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you may know one another. So let's stop there. And this is kind of what I'm talking about. Okay? Allah made us as male and female. Now, is it discrimination to say, you know what, this guy, this person that I see in front of me, you see me in front of you, right? He's got a thick voice, he's got short hair, he's got a little beard growing, he's wearing a thobe and not an abaya, and he's not wearing the niqab, right? So, طيب, this is a man. يعني, is that discrimination? Yes, it's discrimination. It's discrimination because you have been able to discriminate through physical appearances, right? That this must be a man. Okay? You don't have to see more of me to figure that out. Similarly, you won't have to see more of when you see someone, she's got the abaya and she's got the niqab and she's walking down the road, right? Now, this is in an Islamic country, of course, that I live in. You know that's a woman, okay? Generally, you know, okay? So, Allah created you into male and female. And in order to know the male from the female, you use your rational faculties, right? Based on assumptions that you have regarding what is male and what is female. And so then you make the assumption. Look, in today's world, basically, right? I could be sitting here with having the thick voice and the beard going and the thobe, right? And then people go for sex changes, right? I could really just be I don't know, I don't even know what the gender pronoun is for it. But anyway, you get my point, right? But that would go against the general perception of what is a man. Okay, so now, right now, as you see me, I appear as though I am a man, right? Which is what I am. But it doesn't mean that you can't get, for example, a woman who sounds like a man, who looks like a man, who's on testosterone tablets or hormone treatment and so on, right? But really she's a woman and you might mistake her for a man, right? So, is that discrimination? Yes, it is, okay? Discernment. So, وَجَعَلْنَاكُمْ شُعُوبًا وَقَبَائِلًا, and we made you into nations and tribes. Now, what you have to understand is that in a world where people did not move around as much, like we have airplanes today, you know, people travel, they breed with each other, and they have sort of all kinds of different looking children, okay? But in a world where that was traditionally not the case, like still is in big parts of Arabia, people look like their tribe, okay? I mean, it is common for us, you know, in Arabia, when you see somebody and you're like, aha, okay, you from that tribe. How do you know? Well, features, right? People from that particular tribe have particular features, right, that helps you identify them, okay? Nations also, right? You see somebody, right, with slanted eyes, you know, and you think, okay, you know what, probably Chinese. And then they start talking and you're like, Japanese, right? Because, I mean, if you don't live in the East and all you know about the East, the Far East, is that Chinese, Japanese, Korean people, they have kind of a little bit slanted eyes, you know, some more than others. But you don't know, you just know slanted eyes. So you're like, slanted eyes, Far East, okay? I mean, once you get to know people better, you will notice that there's actually remarkably different features between Chinese and Japanese and Koreans, right? But until you don't know that, you don't know that, right? So anyway, but you see someone else, and they speak in a certain way, they move their heads in a certain way, and so on. You would be like, India, Pakistan, maybe. Okay? You listen to another guy speak, you're like, aha, that's an Egyptian. Definitely. When you start saying, agullak madri wala zaik whatever, okay, Egyptian. Right. The point is, this is the nature of the world, and Allah in this ayah is acknowledging, is telling us, we made you like this to be different. In another ayah it says with different colors and tongues, right? Meaning languages. So we are able, and what is it? لِتَعَارَفُوا, so that you may know each other. So is it wrong to discriminate on the basis of these differences, meaning for the purpose of knowing who's who in the zoo? No, it's not wrong, okay? And that's kind of the thing I'm saying we should guard against. We should guard against trying to paint everyone with the same brush in this fake sense of, we are all the same. Because we're not. And that's fine. Okay. So let's go on. It says, Inna akramakum indallahi atqakum. Okay, and this is the crux of the argument. That, you have all these differences. People are different. There's black people, white people, yellow people, slanted eyes, long noses, different languages, different ways of speaking. Okay? However, right? It says, the most honored amongst you with Allah are those who are the most pious, God-fearing. Okay? The most honored amongst you with Allah are those who are the most God-fearing. Now people have taken that even to an extreme, a'udhu billah, in that people decide then amongst each other, who's the most pious. Okay, if I wear a big turban maybe, and a long scarf, and I sit all day with a subha, subhanallah, 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 astaghfirullah, astaghfirullah. A'udhu billah, haramun alayk, ya bashir. Okay, I'm so pious now. Okay? So people have now also taken that. Okay, but and then they say, we must honor this person highly because he's so pious, this is like really the measure of taqwa. Okay, people, this is for Allah to decide. Clearly in the ayah it says, Inna akramakum indallah. Okay, the most honored, amongst you with Allah, atqakum. And Allah knows best who that is. So, and as the ayah continues, it says, Inna Allaha alimun khabir. Okay, indeed, Allah is knowing and informed, aware. Okay, and so this is the crux of the matter. We can have all these differences with each other. Okay, but we cannot believe on the basis of these differences that one is superior to the other. And so these differences are mentioned in that way, meaning dhakar wa untha, that a man is not superior to a woman and a woman is not superior to a man. Okay? Shu'uban wa qaba'ila, one nation is not superior automatically to another, nor another over the other, nor one qaba'il, tribe is superior to another tribe, or vice versa. Okay? These are all just lita'arafu, so you can recognize one another, but it does not, indicate superiority. And when it indicates superiority, then it becomes a problem. Now we're talking about the issue of classism, racism, thisism, and thatism. Okay? So that's where we get with the ayah, Sadaqallahu al-Azim. And then of course in another ayah, the Surah Al-Qalam, Noon wal qalami wa ma yasturun. That's Surah 68. We go down to ayah number 7. Then Allah says in that ayah, Inna rabbaka huwa a'lamu biman dhalla an sabilihi wa huwa a'lamu bil muhtadin. So, and this is the crux of the matter, Allah knows, indeed your Lord, He is the one that knows who is astray from His path. So the one who has strayed from his path, man dhalla biman dhalla an sabilihi, the one who has strayed from the path, right? Wa huwa a'lamu bil muhtadin, and he knows the one who is guided aright. And so this judgment, yani, in other words, right, the muttaqun, the people of taqwa, right, this is really only known to Allah. So we don't make judgments of inferiority and superiority, yani, in terms of the person himself, okay? We can make judgments of superiority and inferiority on the basis of things, meaning yani, skills that people have, qualities, but not a judgment on the person himself, okay? So some person is a better doctor than another. Some person runs faster than another. Someone is better at fighting than another. Someone is better at reading the Quran. Someone is better. We can make judgments of superiority all day based on abilities. That's fine, okay? That's not what we're talking about. And again, we should guard against those types of impulses because it will take us very far back, you know? Believe me. And then in a hadith in the Sunan of Tirmidhi, narrated by An Abi Hurayrata radiallahu an al-Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, قَدْ أَذْهَبَ عَنْكُمْ عُبِّيَّةَ الْجَاهِلِيَّةِ. This hadith talks about Allah has removed from you the vices of the people of ignorance, their boasting. Why? Because وَفَخَّرَهَا لِلْأَبَاءِ, because they used to rejoice in who their fathers were. You know, this is my father, this is my lineage, you know, I'm superior because of who my fathers were, right? So then it says, إِنَّمَا هُوَ مُؤْمِن تَقِيٌّ وَفَاجِرٌ شَقِيٌّ. Okay? Really, so the Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said that actually what you are is you are either a believer that has taqwa, right? A righteous believer, or you are a fajir shaqiyun, or you are a wicked transgressor. Okay? So you're either a righteous believer or a wicked transgressor. That's it. So it doesn't matter, yani, who you are. You are from this tribe or that tribe or this color or that color or male or female even. Okay? So it goes on to say, الناس كلهم بنو آدم وآدم خلق من تراب. Okay? That all of you are from the tribe of Adam. You are all the people of Adam, and Adam was made from dust, from clay. So all of you are essentially, yani, it's saying that essentially, right, in being a human being, you are essentially all the same. And this is fundamentally where we should try to reside in that understanding, but then also at the same time not try to push the argument of equality to the detriment of science, of education, of learning, and of positive discrimination, which is necessary, again, لِتَعَارَفُوا. Okay? And I think that would be it for now. وصلى الله على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. والسلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.